Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com. Welcome to my channel. And I just caught a glimpse of myself in the video. I'm definitely looking like somebody's grandmom today. Tired and a little worn out, I guess. But you hang in there with me, so I appreciate it. You know, today I couldn't help but remember the date of this 4 students in Idaho that were murdered 2 years ago today. And you know, they cross my mind and say a quick prayer for them and their families, and that their justice eventually happens, and you know, that they get the right person, and that the right person is, you know, taken out of business, you know. But then it also, because I saw an article not too long ago that referenced this other case, so it was fresh in my memory, that the DeFeo Murders in 1974, which most of us know more familiarly as the Amityville house, that happened on this date 50 years ago today. So I thought, wow, that's interesting. You know, I'm sure that there have been other commenters who have made the point long before me, you know, that the date was the same in both of those horrendous cases, because sometimes, you know, well, I wonder if sometimes, not that there was any connection between, you know, one or you know, between them, like not to say that whoever is responsible for the Idaho murders like had somehow looked at this case or something. I don't mean anything like that, but I do think sometimes it's uncanny how numbers play a part in things that are similar, you know, whether they're connected or not. No, you know, it could just be coincidence, you know. But there were a few things like that between these two cases. And I just thought it would be interesting to mention them. The case that happened in Amityville happened at 112 Ocean Drive or Ocean Street. And the address in Idaho was 1122 King Drive. So the addresses aren't the same, but they're similar. They have similar things in common. There was 6 in the DeFeo and 4 in the Idaho case. And some of them from each were believed to have been awake at the time that it happened to them. And at least all 6 of the people in Amityville were found in bed. Some may or may not have been found in bed in Idaho, because we don't know everything. While, you know, when this happened with DeFeo in 1974, DeFeo was an active heroin and LSD user who had been diagnosed with a anti-personality disorder. And, you know, when he was questioned, you know, he said he had a couple of elaborate stories. You know, there was a mob hit, his parents were involved with the mob. You know, but then he said the only one he killed in the family was his sister, because she's the one who like killed the family or something like that. You know, he had this elaborate explanation for how things happened. And then right before he left the police, he asked them, oh, by the way, after he was like questioned, he's like, oh, by the way, how do I collect my father's insurance policy? How do I, as the heir, how do I get that? You know, so it was like, it wasn't even subtle, man. So anyway, you know, the police figured him out kind of quick. And one of the defense teams got the idea of like saying he heard demonic things, and then maybe try to get him off on a insanity plea or something. I don't know what their strategy was, but by saying that there was like demonic spirits, you know. So then that house gets sold, and the new people who buy the house I don't know what their intent was when they moved into that house, but they soon latched on to the idea of riding the wave of that for some money, for profit. And so they made up this very elaborate horror story, and that we've all probably seen in the movies. And it was all a hoax. It was all bogus. However, the murders were real. The murders really did happen. I kind of got sidetracked a little bit. Now, DeFeo, at the time of when he did this, he was on probation from work. So there was some kind of something that he didn't do, up to snuff. So, and I think that's interesting because the person that's been under arrest for the crime, had also been having trouble, with his work at that period of time. Now, whether or not the person who's been arrested and is serving, until the trial, we don't know if he was using heroin at the time of the murders, because by the time he was arrested, it was 6 or 7 weeks later, and I don't know if any heroin use would still show up for 6 or 7 weeks. But we do know that the suspect that they have in custody had been in the past a heroin user. So that's another kind of interesting thing. There was a sign for the house in New York, in front of the Amityville house. They had a sign that just said hi. I think it said "High Hopes." It just looked like a little friendly kind of greeting sign that said "High Hopes." And inside the house in Idaho, there was a sign in neon lights that said "Good Vibes." So it just seems kind of chilling that there are parallels between those things. And you have to think, is there something about the date? Is there something about how the numbers worked out? Is there something about, people with birth dates aligning on that date? I don't know. I don't really know any of that. But it just seems kind of strange. It's interesting. DeFeo was ultimately, of course, found guilty because he really didn't have any. All the ballistic evidence, everything pointed to him, and so he was found guilty, and he was charged with second-degree murder, 25 years for each of the 6 deaths to life. So in case he survived that 130 years or 150 years, or I think it's about 150 years. If you multiply 25 times 6, it's like 25 years for each life. That would be like 150 years to life. So in case he outlived 150 years, they put in there to life, because just in case. But so he died recently in 2020, February of 2021, I think. And interestingly, his official cause of death has never been made public. So no one knows how he died. And he managed somehow, DeFeo, while in prison, he was married and divorced 3 times. So he wasn't married when he went in, but he was married and divorced while in prison 3 times, which is really something. So I guess my question today, put to the universe and help receive possible things we can consider through the cards. Is, I don't know, to just ask what kind of connection is there between these 2 cases, nearly 50 years apart from one another, but on the same date with some parallel kind of interesting details. So are they related in any way? So are they related, and how are they related in any way? If they are related through some cosmic thing, how? Men of coins, Hanged Man, 5 cups. And the quint for this would be 12, and 5 would be 17, so that would be the star. So let me pull the star card. Be right back. Alrighty, so here we have the star card. So I think it's interesting that the star card is the quintessential card here. For a few reasons, but the primary one is that, interestingly, the alibi of the defendant from Idaho says he was out stargazing, So this is what makes me, as soon as I saw this card, I think of stargazing. But it also gives me, because this is also an astrological sign, it also makes me wonder if there is something, to be understood between astrological or some kind of beyond this world's understanding of how things might be connected. Seeing these 2 cards, and not that this card ever means the sun, like the son of anybody, but I see this card like looking here, and I'm thinking about a dynamic between a father figure, who I don't see either of those 2 young men, as being father figures, but having a relation with their father, right? And I think DeFeo had a strained relationship with his father. I don't know that the defendant in Idaho, if Brian Koberger had a particularly volatile relationship with his father, but I think there are indicators that suggest that it was a strained relationship. And, possibly it wasn't just the father, possibly it was just, the family in general, had a strained relationship. But I think there was tension, right? There was tension in that family, regarding that young man. So it's like, could this be addressing that between the 2? And then the number 5, imbalance of heart, imbalance of emotion. It could just be another thing that they had in common, was just maybe there was a, imbalance of emotion, some type of dynamic with one of the, the paternal figure. And maybe, definitely, above and beyond our understanding on an astrological or universal level, there may have been a connection, because it seems like it, right? I mean, it just seems like. Okay, let me do another few readings on either or both of these. Let me come up with a few more ideas. Before I get into another reading, I wanted to stop and say that, the reason I thought of today and remembered the students in Idaho is because that crime has affected me. I mean, I think about it every day. It has affected me. I don't know if because some part of my somehow I just feel like I have a slice in that pie, which I don't, but it just feels like it, for some reason. And I just, so I've just, collectively, I hope, we can just, say a prayer for their souls or their spirits, or, and to also for their families, to get through this, and just continue to keep, and the victims, the surviving roommates who were, I think, victims, to keep them all in our, positive hopes and prayers, for sure. And with the Amityville case, that affected me too. 1974, I was a teenager. I was maybe 16, something like that. And this was a sensational thing that happened. I mean, like somebody, like a family of 6 killed by the sun. That was pretty loud news, right? And so I do remember it. And then hearing the stories, of like, the sun, and I've had, when I refreshed my memory by reading up again, I remembered, it all came back to me, what I remembered hearing. And so I think sometimes it's okay to pause on a date that one or more thing happened. Sometimes we do that when our loved ones pass away, and we have the in the event of of a passing away. I don't know what to say it other than like anniversary of their death, or I don't know if there's a better way. There probably is. But I always think about my folks, on the day of their birth and the day of their death, and because they're both like really important dates, right? When you're born and when you leave the world. And so I think about them every day. But I think today is probably a heavy day. Today is a heavy day for the victims' families and the victims' friends when this date comes around. I know it's hard. I know, man. Just remember them all in prayer. And my second question is going to be, we know Ronald DeFeo was actively using heroin at the time of the murders because, he was arrested pretty soon. But the gentleman that they have, or the man that they have in custody for this murder in Idaho, Koberger, who's to know if he was actively using heroin at the time, because he was apprehended 6 or 7 weeks later. That's when he was arrested, so who could know? But I will ask for an indication or an indicator if heroin had been something in common between the two factual murderers. Alrighty, so what I just said. And I don't read reversals, so I flip it up. Eight batons, ace of swords, 8 batons, 5 batons. So we have 1, 8, 5. Add it up and I'll pull the quint. So I'm not sure I don't remember what I said here, but this is 8, right? 8 of batons. So I don't know if I said 9 of batons, but if I did, I was wrong. So we have 1, 8, 9. 9 and 5 is 14. So here we have temperance as the quintessential card. And temperance suggests sobriety, where it suggests lessening the effects of a toxicity. So, it does suggest a level of toxicity. It does, because it's being tempered, right? Temperance really means temperance, like diluting, wine with water. So, and that's what it would have been in the context that the card itself was, created as a virtue, right? So, so it does speak of toxicity, but it speaks of it being tempered or lessened in some way, which is really interesting. So I don't think it's, I don't know. On the one hand, it references toxicity, but it references it as in it not being such a strong factor. So in this case, I think that maybe there wasn't heroin in common with these two events. Although there is aggression, all of these cards could belong to the suit of a weapon. We have swords here and we have clubs here, or batons here. So these are the two suits that have a certain amount of aggression that can suggest, physical aggression. So that could be what they have in common, some type of, the ace suggests like a plan, like going forward in the context of this question. It seems like there's a plan, something, got an idea, to move forward. And then there's, a physical thing that happens. But the question wasn't about that. The question was heroin use a factor between the both? Is that something they have in common? And I don't think that that's what they had in common. I think it was something else, but I don't think that heroin use at the time of the murders was the thing that they had in common. The whole high hopes sign and the good vibes sign, they give me the chills when I think of them. It's just like, how could those positive words have attracted such calamity? How could those signs, they have these signs. It's almost like they're warding off something that they know is coming. It's weird. It's just weird. I just can't get past it. It may be my medicine that I'm taking that's talking. Yeah, the cuckoo knows. Because you guys may have noticed, a difference in my mental acuity in recent weeks doing these videos. And I am in so much pain that my pain relief alters my thought process, So, I do kind of want to apologize and explain why, if you've been noticing, something that I seem different. It's because for the duration that I'm taking this medicine to help relieve my pain. Anyway, so this thing with the signs, in a way, like, what was it about their locations, for there to be, somebody who picked up on something, and put up a good vibes, high hopes kind of thing, because it always seems like there was somehow on some level, there was an understanding that they needed to be protected, So I'm going to ask about, what the two locations had in common in that regard. What did they need protection from? Like, because maybe it'll connect the fellas too, if we can figure out. If there's, whoa. Wow. 5 and 5, 10 coins. Wasn't expecting to see this again. And 2, 4, 6, 7. So we have a show of land, earth, 10 and 10, 7, 17, and then we have the temperance card again. So the quint card is the sun card, which, when I think of signs, like good vibes and high hopes, you almost expect to see, a happy sun in the sign, right? So this is like the happy sign. They're almost like pointing to the thing, like it's the happy sign, and that's the quint card, which is weird. So we do have the appearance of the temperance card a second time, and it may be relating to what we said in the last time, but if we look at it in the context of this question, it's like if there's a balancing act in the context of what did the, signs have in common for both houses, like what something led to a, verified, it's almost verifying that, my thought is correct. It was like something about the signs, right? So there's like in the context of that, it's like there's a need to balance something that's off, right? So if there's a need to balance something that's off, is it in these two cards? So we have a 10 and we have a 7. Which in of themselves add up to 17, which is the star card, which came in common in another reading we did. Now there's this, these cards suggest money. Maybe in DeFeo, the motive was money, because, he stood to inherit a lot. Apparently his father was affluent. And so that could definitely have been a motive, but in the one, but not in the other. And at any rate, why would there be a sign to ward that off, right? You know what I'm saying? So, because there was no such inheritance in the second case, so that can't be a connection. Maybe it could suggest balancing, some kind of stability. Coins can represent, physical stability, to some degree mental stability. I know this suit of swords, has the mental thing going on, and quick-wittedness and stuff like that. But, sometimes coins could be kind of mental, in the sense that they're, deep thinking suits, maybe, not quick thinking maybe, but deep thinking, or long thinking, or something that brews in one's mind. So it could be, to ward off with some kind of imbalance, if the two properties had something in common. This is what it's suggesting, that there's some type of imbalance of physical well-being, or possibly, mental well-being. So maybe there's something about those properties in common, that there's just some sense, maybe it's the properties themselves, which maybe there's a history. Who knows? What's the history of each of those properties? Who knows what they would have had in common? Very interesting. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video, or saw some value to it, and just considering how sometimes things, just by virtue of a few circumstantial coincidences, can make you think there could be connection in this big picture of life that we have happening here. So I don't know, but to definitely, it's particularly for the families and the survivors and the young people in Idaho, keep them all in prayer. And, because today has got to be a tough day. Until next time, friends, peace, stay well, be kind, and do no harm.